starvation, not having food. These are just a few of the many problems that real people face every single day, which is why I'm so encouraged to share with you the story of these poor African children who, without a penny to their names, banded together to raise enough money to feed one of those people in need of nourishment. Ariana Grande.
Tumekuwa na njaa kwa muda, lakini sidhani kama kuna mtu yeyote katika kijiji changu amewahi kwenda mbali kama Ariana Grande.
Sikuweza kumudu dola ya galinda, hivyo nikatengeneza moja kwa kutumia vijiti, lakini bado inaonekana yenye afya kuliko ile halisi. Labda misaada ya kigeni ipelekwe kwa Miss Grande badala yetu, kwani misaada yetu mingi inamezwa na serikali yetu fisadi. Ndugu wangu amenipa nusu ya chakula chake kwa miaka 5 iliyopita ili nisinyauke kabisa, na bado nikimlinganisha na Ariana, ndugu wangu ni bonge nono.
Now that you've heard from these children, take some time to reflect on the blessings you've been given in your life. Reach deep within yourself, and then do the same thing you always do. Absolutely nothing. Trusting that the compassion you feel for others will be met by the actions of others, such as these children or the U.S. government. This message is brought to you by the Feed Ariana Fund.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, Cooper Smith from the America First Policy Institute on the ongoing dramas in Minnesota. Scott Wilder saving unborn Americans. Meaghan Mobbs reports to us live from Ukraine today. And Dr. Kevin Roberts, the family in the 2026 election. Plus sketch comedy from Al Berry, the Babylon Bee, and Mr. Reagan. And in the new music spotlight, it's Leanne Crawford. And now from Times Square, while little bitty Zoran tries to figure out which country he's in, this man's not confused. He's the king of Times Square. Here's the Kevin! Good weekend, friends. We've got so much to get to. Had a fantastic week on the radio this week. I hope you got to check out some of it on the Salem Radio Network. 505 cities that I get to be in now and be with you every single day for a couple of hours, 2 to 4 in the afternoon is when we do it live. But if your city takes us at another time, we love being with you at that time as well. And then if you miss all of it, you can go to the Salem Podcast Network. Think about this. They've got it so figured out. You can go get it on the air, get it streaming on any of the stations that you want to. And if you can't get it there, you go get the podcast. And we don't put it behind a paywall. Nothing is behind a paywall. We want you to have access to it for free. But anyway, thanks for being with us for the big TV show this weekend. We've got a lot. We're going to talk about families and how they're going to impact the 2026 election. Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation is here. I don't get to talk to him very often. Always look forward to it when I do. Cooper Smith is here from the America First Policy Institute. What's going on in Minnesota? We'll come back to that in a second. Plus, we got Meaghan Mobbs, who is not only a part of the Independent Women's Forum, but she's going to be with us live from Ukraine and give us an update on what she's doing there and why she's there and what's going on. It's a lot of fun, a lot of sketch comedy. Last week we showed you Mr. Reagan's new entree into the cartoon world with MAGA Man. He had episode 1. He's got episode 2 ready this week. That's going to be good. And the always funny Al Berry. We've got another Tim Walz spoof that we got going down. So it's going to be great. I just hope you'll stay with us. Not to mention Leanne Crawford in the music spotlight this week. So it's all going to be great. Here's what I need to bring to your attention, though, and this is rather important. I don't understand two things about the Minnesota stuff right now. First of all, you've got little Timmy Walz, who was up there, and he's trying to be Mr. Down Home, and I'm just trying to be Mr., all shucks guy. Of course, it's hard to be all shucks guy when you are overlord of little Somalia, which is kind of what he is. But this is what confused me. I saw him doing a press conference this week, and what he had on his lapel, right there, where you have the lapel pin, he had an Islamic star. 8 points. Very unique. It's not very unique. It's unique or it's not unique. It's unique. It's unique for knowing that it has 8 points on it and that it is shaped the way that it is shaped. And there it was on his lapel, the Islamic star. Now, if he was Jewish and had a Star of David on his lapel, that would make sense. If he was Christian, which he claims to be, and he had a cross on his lapel, that makes sense. No matter his religion at all, if he has an American flag on his lapel, that makes a ton of sense, especially as an elected leader and the head of the great state of Minnesota. But there it was, plain as day for everyone to see, the Islamic star. It was very confusing. Governor Walz, why are you wearing an Islamic star? You're not Islam. You're not Muslim. You don't bow to Mecca 3 times. Do you? Do you? Do we need to be told something? Or have you changed allegiances? Very confusing on that level. Secondly, he sends a missive to the president this week that just makes no sense. He says, and we got a graphic here, he wants to make a direct appeal to the president. I'm making a direct appeal to the president. You know what I think of when I see or hear those words? I kind of think of Will Ferrell and I drive a Dodge Stratus. I drive a Dodge Stratus. I drive a Dodge Stratus. I'm making an appeal to the president. It's either that or Michael Scott from The Office. I declare bankruptcy. But it's one of those two. And it's, all shucks guy. I'm making an appeal to the president. Okay, Mr. Walz, do your thing. He says to the president, turn the temperature down, stop your retribution. This is not who we are. Now, what retribution is the president playing out against Minnesota? Does the president have anything to show retribution against Minnesota for? I don't know of anything. I don't know why he would be mad. Mike Lindell lives in Minnesota. It's one of President Trump's best buddies. He loves Minnesota. Almost won Minnesota a couple of times, despite all the chicanery and cheating and fooling around that goes on up there. So it's one of those things where I don't know what he's talking about, but he says, stop the retribution, turn the temperature down. Okay, so you're asking, in light of the conflicts and the rough feelings and everything that's been done, turn the temperature down. Okay, great. And then he says, I make an appeal to Minnesotans. Okay, what's that? It's scary. We must speak out. We must speak out loudly. We must speak out urgently. Wait a second. You just said that you wanted to turn the temperature down. And you're calling on turn the temperature down, Mr. President. You're asking for the temperature to be turned down. And then you're saying to the people that you have direct stewardship of, because you don't have anything to do with the president at all. He doesn't have to listen to you. He doesn't have to put up with your silly nonsense. He can just say, boom, Insurrection Act. It's over. You couldn't control your people. We're going to do it. But no. The people you actually have influence with that you can, on some level, help to choose better, you're Minnesotans. You're not asking them to turn the temperature down. You're asking them to turn it up. We must speak out loudly and urgently. We must be very, very loud and urgent. So, which is it? Do you want the temperature turned down, or do you want loud and urgent? Because it's scary. Because everything to you, Mr. Walz, is scary. But I'm confused here. You got the you got the Islamic star. You got turning the temperature down, begging the president, turn the temperature down. He's not really raising the temperature. And then you want the Minnesotans to speak loudly and urgently. And here's the thing. Do you really not want President Trump to do what he's doing? You know what he's doing, don't you? He's getting rid of the criminally minded illegal aliens that are currently possessing your state. And he's getting rid of child sodomizers and rapers of women and murderers and predators and all kinds of things. He's getting rid of all of the bad elements that you probably don't want there, so that you can say, hey, look, we created a more peaceful place. Now you can vote me for governor again, except you already dropped out. So I get it. But it doesn't make any sense, friend, that you're sitting there saying, turn the temperature down. He's not doing anything. He's just getting rid of all the bad guys that you won't get rid of. And then that's going to benefit you and your people. Tim Walz is a very confusing guy. Temperature Tim. I guess that's another nickname for him, isn't it? Better than the other one. I don't like using the other one. Big show, huge show. Covered in the spotlight. Coming right back from New York.
From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And this story has not gone away in the number of days that we thought that it was going to. In fact, I think that the news camp is going to be camped out in Minnesota for a long time, because between the corruption that you have going on with the state and the federal welfare dollars and things that have been going badly in the Somali community. And then on top of that, you have this issue of ICE and the supposed shooting of Renee Good and all the rest of it. So here to discuss, back with us, is Cooper Smith from the America First Policy Institute. And Cooper, I understood Vice President Vance's anger at the news media and at the Democrats late last week, as he very forcefully contended that the evidence would be found to show that the ICE agents involved did not do anything wrong in the process of what they were. In fact, they were being harassed continually by Ms. Good and her partner. And the more videotape that seemed to erupt over the weekend, the more that came true. And we now know that she directly pointed her tires and backed up and pointed her car at that ICE agent, who then ended up firing the shot. But I'm just curious, how do you think the rest of the country's interpreting this at this point?
Well, I think, look, I'm reminded, of course, of 2020. You can take one video, and it's like that old Japanese movie Rashomon, where you can see one video, and four different people see four different things, right? And that's just the nature of our country right now. Unfortunately, we're so deeply divided on everything. But what I hope we can unite on is the fact that, look, ICE is out there. The law is what it is, right? Title 8 of the U.S. Code says you cannot be here if you don't have legal status, and they can remove you. And that is the type of work that ICE is doing day in and day out. So I think, in terms of the video, you saw it like I did and millions of other Americans did. I think the left is kind of focusing on her intention. Like she didn't intend to run over the officer. Well, he was, 6 inches away from getting his foot run over and possibly maimed. Like, this is what matters. So I guess they were hoping that he got injured, right? If he got injured, then it would have justified, he was standing right there. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has stood in front of a moving vehicle, but you're not looking at the tires, not looking at your concern for your safety. So for me, he was fully within his rights as a federal agent. And you're right. DHS is reporting that she had been harassing and following these officers for a number of hours, and probably before that as well, I would assume, given that she was part of this ICE. She's
one of the leaders of the resistance group. But even the video that was revealed from the neighbor's house from across the street that shows her just before that particular incident, it shows well up the block where she's interacting with them, trying to cut them off, trying to get in their way. Then she pulls all the way to the point where she's perpendicular, completely perpendicular on the street. And then when she's given a lawful order by lawful law enforcement, this is what, and I stressed this in my columns over the weekend, these people are not amateurs, and they're not optional. They are as much law enforcement as FBI, Secret Service, U.S. Marshals, any other of the federal law enforcement agencies. When they give you a lawful order, in other words, an order that comports with the law, doesn't make you do something that's illegal, it is your job as a citizen to comport with it.
You're absolutely right. But unfortunately, we're in an environment, and it's not just over the last year, it's for 10 years now, where mainstream politicians and activists and media commentators have been essentially, putting ICE in this corner and saying that they're somehow unique, they're uniquely bad. Well, of course, at the end of the day, that's because they're carrying out a mission that these people don't agree with, which is fine. You don't have to agree with ICE's mission, but it is what it is. Congress passed a law in 2003 creating ICE. They're carrying out lawful immigration. The immigration policies have been on the books for decades. I mean, we're basically going back to the mid-1960s operating on the same immigration laws. So it's not like this is anything new. So when they call it, Trump's, private military force, or, a modern day Gestapo, it's so crazy. And unfortunately, these people believe these lies that they're hearing about ICE. And look, like you said, Kevin, impeding or interfering with law enforcement is a federal crime.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that this woman was committing a crime. And in the course of committing a crime, look, the officers have to assume bad intent. How could you not assume bad intent when somebody's trying to block you from moving? And by the way, we don't know the situation happening behind the truck, the vehicle that drove up to Miss Good's car. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but they're obviously onlookers. There are people who I would assume are also agitating and protesting and harassing ICE officers. It's not just her in her car, but the whole scene and the hours prior that would inform that officer's kind of judgment in that exact moment. Not to mention, he was dragged by another vehicle back in June.
Yeah, the fact that he's even back on the job already with that recent of a traumatic incident like that is kind of amazing. I want to touch on something else. ICE released over the weekend mugshots and actual crimes that the people that they were pulling out in that specific action and the few more before it, who these people were. And Cooper, we're told repeatedly that these are, just down on their luck people. Yeah, they broke the law by coming in the country, but they're really not any worse than that, et cetera, et cetera. ICE has maintained that it is deporting, that it is getting the worst of the worst criminals out. And when they released that list, it was 30 or 35 names, I think, and the mugshots. These were predators, rapists, murderers that were all here illegally and certainly qualify for the worst of the worst designation. And that's who Renee Good was defending. That's who she was trying to protect and keep ICE from getting out of our country.
Right. Not just that, but that's who Mayor Frey and Tim Walz and Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and J.B. Pritzker and all the rest of these clowns, that is who they are protecting. They're protecting not the American people. They're protecting rapists and pedophiles and murderers and gang members. And you're right. ICE, just in the last couple of weeks, has picked up over 1,000 criminal illegal aliens from Minnesota. So when you have sanctuary policies that, and actually just on another point, why did Minneapolis PD show up after Renee Good was killed? Why weren't they there with ICE at the beginning? Well, that's because of Mayor Frey giving them an order to never work with ICE in any capacity. They're not even allowed, ICE is not even allowed to use city parking lots according to Minneapolis policy. So this is the policy that led to Renee Good. In many ways, the left is more to blame for her death than anybody else.
Well, there's this troubling trend that is emerging, and I haven't quite fully settled on the articulation of what I even fully think that it is yet, but it involves these ingredients. It involves wanton law breaking of things that they just don't agree with. Then it involves encouraging the bad behavior of those who would disobey that, basically disobeying lawful laws. And then it's the condemnation and criticism of everyone who tries to enforce the law. And then if anything goes wrong, it is the blaming of those who were trying to enforce the original law that everything is laid out at. And it's subversive. It feels like treason.
Stick around for more of That Kevin next. Iced. That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back. Times Square, Kevin McCullough. It's troubling. It is very, very troubling as we are seeing what is happening with the left in this country. Cooper Smith is back with us from the America First Policy Institute. And Cooper, the people that, under the Biden administration thought we should go get Maduro suddenly thinks that this is a terrible thing that we've done, and they're objecting to it all the way around. People that the Democratic Party, formerly very much opposed to violent, illegal gang members coming to the U.S., now seem to want to defend them. And then there's this other layer of just telling the rest of the world to F off if they disagree with them and just being profane. And they curse at ICE, but they're not really cursing at ICE. They're cursing at you and me and everybody else that wants ICE to do their job and to keep us safe. And then on top of that, you've got this other layer of coordinated effort, maybe by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, maybe by the governor, maybe by the attorney general, maybe by other people that know that they're vacuuming tax dollars out of Washington by the billions, $9 to $18 billion in lost funds, to totally fake fraudulent operations. And when the American taxpayer sits and watches all of this at the 6 o'clock news, if they even get it reported on their news source, they have to be sitting here pulling their hair out, Cooper, going, what is this country that we live in now? Because it is as though the left wants to rob us, rape us, kill us, murder us, and leave us for death on the road while they continue to let other people come here, continue to elect themselves, continue to pat themselves on the back at what great people they are. And I think that the average American is really miffed. I think that they've greatly underplayed how the average American is viewing the events of the last few weeks and what it's going to mean in the midterms.
Yeah, I think that's right. And look, when you were talking there, Kevin, I was reminded of, look, as an ICE officer, if you're a protester and you disagree with ICE, the worst thing that you can do is protest ICE themselves, who, again, as you pointed out, and I have, and many others, are simply carrying out the law as Congress has given them to do. Now, Biden, of course, purposely pulled back ICE and basically made it so that as a policy, they're not going to do immigration enforcement unless somebody has committed a very serious crime. Well, it's my opinion, and I think the American people's opinion, as you're talking about, Kevin, that we shouldn't wait for an illegal alien to commit a heinous crime. We shouldn't wait for another Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungare to die, or Molly Tibbetts for that matter, to die before we then remove them. So if you have ire at ICE or immigration enforcement, that is your right as an American, but please do not protest ICE officers themselves. Go and protest your local congressman or congresswoman who made the laws that they're operating under.
No, it's completely fair. And at the end of the day, the understanding should be, no matter which party's in power, that lawful law enforcement is something that we all observe. As a decent citizen of the country, you obey the laws and the law enforcement that is there to protect you, because at the end of the day, it is there to protect you. And, I have this, I've got 4 children, one who's Haitian American, adopted, darker skinned than most people that you ever see. And I've got 3 white kids that all belong to me biologically. And I tell all of them, as I've raised them, if a police officer asks you a question, you say, "Yes, sir," and you answer the question. If he pulls you over when you're driving someday, you pull over and you say, "How can I help you, sir? What did I do? What can I do to be of help?" At the end of the day, when we have a posture that says, as a citizen, we have a responsibility to be lawful in our actions, then everything goes better for you. Where it goes bad is when you think you're above, beyond, or outside of those jurisdictions, and you act on it under your own accord. I may not like the stretch of road between my studio and my house where it's 25 miles an hour, But guess what? If I'm doing 40 and a local cop catches me, I'm going to owe him some money, and I'm going to owe the village some money for the crime that I committed. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with what I like or what I want. It has to do with what the law is and how we operate in this country. And when it comes to the embezzlement of these funds, Cooper, what should be happening? And are you aware of any investigations that have been launched? Like, how far does this corruption go? Do we think that there will be even elected officials ultimately indicted here?
Yeah, when I think about the Minnesota fraud, of course, I'm sure you've said this or noticed this as well, it is not just in Minnesota. We're talking about fraud at a nationwide scale, whether it's California or Illinois or other places. And one of the things I've been thinking about is, from an immigration point of view, which is what I read about and care about the most, if somebody came here and is willing, a Somalian, for example, came here and is willing to so flagrantly abuse taxpayer money and waste it, why wouldn't they have committed immigration fraud to get here?
Cooper Smith, fighting the fight at the American First Policy Institute.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, That Kevin Show. So pleased to have you with us. ThatKevinShow.com for everything related to the show. One of the things that we like doing here at That Kevin Show in January is making a difference in people's lives, particularly for little ones. I'm a dad. I love being a dad. I'm unapologetic about it. I've got 4 kids, 1 adopted, 3 natural birth. They fill my life with joy. And as I'm getting older, I'm beginning to understand that I don't really take a lot of joy out of other things. I mean, I used to be a hardcore sports fan and golfer and all this other stuff. If I can jettison all of that and spend the afternoon with my youngins, that's a way better experience for me. And one of the reasons why I don't really want them to grow up and move out, but they're going to. But one of the reasons that I'm so enthusiastic about preborn is because we're giving the opportunity for other parents to experience that joy. We're saying to a mom, no, you can actually have this wonderful experience of being a mom and develop those relationships with those youngins as they go along. Scott Wilder is back with us from preborn, a proud dad himself, very, very proud. All your kids are kind of on the grown-up side. I mean, I'm practically young enough to be one of your kids, but
I'm a dad and I'm a granddad.
Yeah, and see, I haven't gotten to that level yet, so it's that's another layer of fun that I'm looking forward to.
Nice.
But it's true. This is a gift that we give parents that are involved here, and to the fathers and the mothers.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think that not until you in the middle of it do you really know what a blessing it is. I think that when, as I think I mentioned before, when you talk to a girl who goes in to get an ultrasound, and her attitude is no way, and she means that. If she were typing it, she'd write no, period, way, period, no way. I'm not having this baby. No way. And that's her attitude walking in. But then walking out, her attitude is, I can't wait.
There's no way I'm not having this baby.
Yeah. Initially, it's like, there's no way I'm having this baby. Coming out, it's like, yeah, no way I'm not having it. It is really a 180-degree change that happens. You read in the Bible, and I never really understood it. I mean, I understand it more now as an adult, but you read in the Bible the whole thing about, the scales fell off his eyes. He saw things he couldn't see before. And I think that there's a scales coming off the heart that I think takes place when a girl sees her baby, hears her baby's heartbeat. So we have a chance today to provide that. It's a great gift to be able to do. Also, we get lots of texts, and when someone gives a gift, they might write in the comment section their little story. I remember a story of a woman who wrote, and here 3 sentences is all she wrote. She said, I am a senior citizen that had 2 abortions in my younger days out of fear, and I regretted it ever since. The second sentence was, I think of those babies every year when that time of year rolls around. The third sentence was, please accept this gift in their memory and honor so that another young girl won't have to go through what I went through.
Wow.
So this is a woman that starts out, I'm a senior citizen. She's saying that maybe for 50 years, she's had this has followed her around. That time of year has carried with it maybe a pall, a little cloud that was part of it. I mean, the girl that just found out she's pregnant over Christmas is going to make a decision before Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means? Every Valentine's Day for the rest of her life will hold whatever memory is sticking with her from this decision. We want it to be a good memory. The best memories come from the best decisions, and the best decisions come from the most and accurate information. That's what you're doing. You provide the ultrasound. You give her the truth.
To your point, this stage of life is full of memories, and so whatever you do in that window, it's going to be memorable.
Yeah, I know.
You want it to be a positive one.
So she can recall all that. That's what I mean. Something that was 10 years ago, but the senior citizen, for her, that might have been 40 years ago. I got a note from a woman who said, we were talking about the value of the ultrasound on a different radio station. And the note that she said, I wish that I had someone give me the gift of an ultrasound 47 years ago. Now, let me just put a pause in that for a second. Here's what I find interesting. She didn't say almost 50 years ago. She didn't say more than 40 years ago. She said 47 years ago. You know why? Because she knows exactly when that happened. And next year she would have said 48 years ago. And the next year she would say 49 years ago. That's my point. It really, really sticks, the decision that is made. And we want to make sure that the best memories are what they have. And you can do that. You can help do that by providing the ultrasound when you provide it today. That's the truth. And she needs the truth, and she needs a friend. So if you've been through this before, you are uniquely qualified to know the value of the ultrasound. Every woman who has ever given a gift or has called or sent a text beyond giving and has told a story about how she would do things differently if she could go back in time, she is saying in her own way, I'm qualified to know the value of this.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been given to me, my whole life would be different. So yeah, you're saving a baby, you're saving a mom, you're saving a dad, saving a mom and a dad from perhaps a lifetime of pain and sorrow and regret. Certainly the moms, we assume the dads will know, but sometimes the dads don't know. The moms certainly know about the decision that she has made. And we want to make sure that she has the best memory. A year from now, believe me, a year from now, she'll be thankful that you had given her that ultrasound. Or she'll have a different memory that we could have made different if we just had provided an ultrasound today.
Well, we know that there are at least 1,200 ultrasounds that we could produce just in January, friend. If everybody listening went and did their part, $28 a piece. But that's how many that PreBorn has said to That Kevin Show. This is the amount of ultrasounds that we need. On top of that, we also need at least a couple of those, ultrasound machines, which are about $15,000 each. The ultrasounds are $28 a piece. The machines are $15,000. But a combination of that, if we got a couple of those machines and 1,200 ultrasounds, we would be able to help indefinitely a number of women that are going to need the services. They're going to need the help. Here's the number: 833-850-BABY, 833-850-2229, 833-850-BABY, 833-850-2229, or go to thatkevinshow.com and click the little banner at the top of the page. You'll
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Somalians only stole like $9 billion with fake daycare centers. I feel like everyone is way overreacting. These people need to take a chill pill and learn how to forgive. You're right, Tim. It is not a big deal. These devil white people are just looking for things to be upset about. I know, Ilhan Omar. I just don't know what to do if I can't be the governor. How am I gonna make money? Politics is the only thing I ever leered. Oh, Tim, don't cry. Everything will be okay. I just wish I were as smart as Somalians. Then I'd know what to do. Tim, you're as smart as the most intelligent Somalian. You really think so? Of course I do. Remember you took an IQ test and scored a 71? That's even higher than I got. You really think I'm a Somalian genius, huh? You know what? I think I have an idea. Hi guys, I'm Nick Shirley. I've been told this daycare is being run by a Somalian, so I'm here to investigate. It's called the Leering Centaur for Kid Waiting to Leer More. I'm gonna knock on the door and see if anyone actually works here. Are you with the news? Holy crap, you're Tim Walz. I'm not Tim Walz, I'm a Somalian. Tim, I know it's you, I can tell. Ah, crap. Fine, just don't tell any of the Somalians it's me. The only way to become part of a Somalian scam is to be Somalian. Why are you here? Well, obviously I can't be governor of Minnesota anymore, and I needed another way to get rich. Am I really the only one who's noticed you so far? Yeah, people are pretty friggin' oblivious about it. Hey, you wanna hear a joke I learned from the Somalians? Okay. How many Somalians does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know. How many? I'm not sure. They're still trying to figure out what light bulbs are.
2, 3, Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from his Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, Meaghan Mobbs from the Independent Women's Forum will report live from Ukraine. Scott Wilder is back trying to save unborn Americans. And Dr. Kevin Roberts talks about the family and the elections of 2026. Plus more sketch comedy from Al Berry and Mr. Reagan. And back in the spotlight, it's Leanne Crawford. And now from Times Square, where Iranian ayatollahs are checking their life expectancy like a stock ticker or a pizza rat, here's Kevin.
Weekend, America. We begin today, Florida, where a smiling anti-ICE agitator allegedly punched a state trooper and was promptly introduced to the radical concept of consequences. Governor Ron DeSantis reassured the nation that, quote, "This is not Minneapolis," which Floridians immediately translated as, "We still arrest people around here who assault cops." The suspect reportedly smiled the entire time because nothing says moral high ground like throwing a punch and then posing like you just won a tooth whitening contest. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Congressman Eric Swalwell is back in the news after accepting nearly $15,000 from a law firm tied to the Chinese Communist Party. Swalwell insists that it's all innocent and that he definitely knows how to spot foreign influence now. After all, he just took money from some and was sleeping with some. Practice makes perfect, I guess. Critics say it's less campaign finance, more international pen pal stuff. Overseas, Iranian state TV aired a not-so-subtle threat against President Donald Trump, helpfully featuring a photo from the Butler assassination attempt. U.S. Secret Service officials say they're aware, which in government speak means coffee has been upgraded to espresso. Back stateside, police released photos revealing a Virginia nanny that allegedly moved into the master bedroom weeks after a love triangle murder. Detectives say the case includes betrayal, audacity, and a level of confidence normally reserved for the people who cut you off in traffic and then wave. In sports, former NFL star J.J. Watt scolded Pittsburgh Steelers players for leaking details of Coach Mike Tomlin's emotional final meeting. Watt reminded them that what's said in the locker room stays in the locker room, unless you're trying to boost your podcast numbers. On the global chessboard, President Trump threatened tariffs on countries opposing America's interest in Greenland. confirming once and for all that monopoly right now is official foreign policy. Trump also said there's no need to invoke the Insurrection Act right now in Minneapolis, which experts describe as a masterclass in ominous calm. New York politics took a turn when Zoran Mamdani, little Zoran, was dinged by the New York Times for not having enough black deputy mayors, proving once again that in modern politics, representation is everything, except competence, results, or math. Elsewhere, Trump slipped into a French accent, oui, oui, while recalling a blunt phone call with President Macron. French officials responded by shrugging in unison. An exiled Iranian crown prince unveiled a 6-step plan to pressure Tehran. Bottled water recalled 38,000 gallons of mystery substance, and snow might fall in the South this weekend. Taco Bell also debuted a luxe value menu, and America earned a worst tourist destination badge, beating out places with active volcanoes. Finally, experts now warn lawmakers that AI chatbots may form romantic bonds with your children. Congress responded by scheduling a hearing sometime in 2047. For a Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Capt. McCullough.
It appears you hold all the cards, Mr. Trump. My fate is in your hands.
Has anyone ever told you you look like a donkey?
Yes. Many times.
Even facing certain death, you're defiant, like a petulant child. Well, it won't help you now, Maduro. Your time is up. F8.
You sunk my oil tanker.
Hasta el final.
Coño carajo.
Oil Tanker, the new game from Bilton Madley, proud sponsor of MAGA Man.
El papá de los pelucones.
This is not going to be easy, but we'll make him talk. Torture, blackmail, bribery, whatever it takes.
He's going to steal all the gold in Fort Knox.
Well, that was easy.
That's what you're talking about, right? A Porridge Pourer's heist? More money in there than a Somali daycare. A lot of gold in Fort Stocks. I mean, Snort Fox. I mean, Sports Rocks. No, I mean, you know the thing.
So it's a heist.
Was that supposed to be a secret?
Oh yeah, that's a secret. Don't tell anybody.
Okay, Joe. Sure thing. See you soon, buddy.
Did somebody say secrets? You would not believe how much money I stole through Ukraine. And you didn't really think I got 80 million votes, did you? And wait till you hear what really happened to Barack's personal chef. Tell him the big guy sent you.
All right, team, listen up. Porridge Poros is planning to steal all the gold in Fort Knox.
Wasn't there supposed to be an audit of Fort Knox back in, like, February?
Who the hell is this guy?
That's Christopher Coles, the YouTuber known as Mr. Reagan.
Mr. Reagan. Okay. What's your superpower, kid?
I'm, lucky.
Everything seems to turn out okay when he's around, sir. Statistically impossible success rate. We ran the numbers.
Okay. He can stay.
To Mr. Reagan's point, we actually did the audit, sir. Contrary to online conspiracy theorists, we've actually increased our gold supply. 29,000 metric tons, about 80% of all global monetary gold.
80%? How is that possible?
That seems pretty good.
The reason we didn't publicize the findings is that we don't actually want foreign governments to know this. If they knew how much gold we're sitting on,
we'd have every country in the world trying to take it.
Exactly.
Probably China. I just like saying that word, China.
So Poros isn't just trying to steal some gold, he's trying to steal most of the gold.
Better call in some of the others for backup. Hey, pilot, you'd better step on it. We've got to save Fort Knox.
Will our heroes reach Fort Knox in time? Can they stop the diabolical scheme of Forge Poros? Find out in the next pulse-pounding adventure of MAGA Man.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Now, back to that Kevin show with Kevin McCullough.
Meaghan Mobbs is back with us. Former military member. She's got a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas, and she comments frequently for us on foreign policy. Meaghan, it's good to see you. I hope you had a good holiday.
Thanks, Kevin. It's such a pleasure to be with you. I had a wonderful holiday. How was yours?
Well, we did all of our traveling before the weekend of Christmas, and then from that Monday through, I guess, the day after New Year's, we were flannel pajama wearing hermits. Stayed in the house, but it was a lot of fun. There's a lot I could talk to you about, but you sprung something on me when we connected. You're reporting to us live from Ukraine. I know that this has been a big passion for you, especially over the last couple of years. And if you don't follow Meaghan on Instagram, you should. She's got a lot of great things there. But tell us what you're doing and kind of the assessment of why you're there and what you hope the outcome will be.
So unfortunately, things are quite catastrophic here right now with regard to the power situation. I was telling you just moments before, I didn't have any power prior to us joining. So they came on right before I was supposed to talk to you. It's quite catastrophic. Last night, there was a major attack by Russia, again, against civilian infrastructure, against the energy infrastructure here in Ukraine. And there are many cities without any power whatsoever. So I'm lucky right now. I have power. I'll probably have it for a couple of hours. But there are some major cities like Dnipro that have no power, which means there's no heat. And I will tell you, it is freezing here, Kevin. It is a real feel of 2. So we're talking about absolutely a humanitarian crisis occurring in real time.
Obviously, there has been a lot of going to the table and walking away from the table. And I've never seen President Trump really be as frustrated with any circumstance he's faced in government the way the Ukraine issue has dogged his administration carrying over from the last one. It seems as though there's not going to be just a peace settlement that the two sides can come to anytime soon. What are the sticking points? What are the real obstructions to ending this conflict and getting both countries kind of back to normal? Although Ukraine, I think, will have a lot of help from the Western powers to do that. I think the U.S. and a lot of others will come in with a lot of help and aid and commercial, alliances and stuff like that. But what's preventing ending this war?
Quite frankly, it's Putin. I mean, he has very clearly said that he has repeatedly stated his maximalist gains. And what I mean by that, it's not enough for this war to kind of freeze on the current line of contact or where the fighting currently is. He has repeatedly stated he wants all of the Donbass, which is 2 oblasts. So think of like states almost, Luhansk and Donetsk. But that's not enough for him. He also wants Zaporizhia and he wants Kherson. And then he wants to keep what he has in Kharkiv. So if we think about that as Americans, he wants multiple states to belong to him, even though he hasn't won them on the battlefield. And so what he's looking to do is just protract this process, continue to try to attrit the Ukrainian army so he can gobble up more land and increase his leverage at the negotiating table. Really, right now, what we've seen is the Ukrainians have been willing to make quite a large number of concessions and come to the table repeatedly and say, we're not the problem here. We're willing to say yes. We just need you to get Russia to say yes. And they just have not been willing to do so.
I don't think most of the West knows what you just said, because I think the media here primarily says it's just over the first 2 states that you mentioned. All that extra area. By the way, do those happen to be oil-bearing areas that he's wanting to keep?
So they have lots of rare earth minerals and lots of energy. So one of the other sticking points is a Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia is in control of that power plant. They want to retain control, but that's quite a large commodity that belongs to the Ukrainian people and to Ukraine. And so I think we are talking a lot about the Donbass, which is those two states I mentioned earlier. Yep. But in the Russian constitution, they recognize Kherson and Zaporizhzhia as being Russian. So if we think he's going to stop there, we just have to look back to Obama. When Obama was convinced by Putin then, if we just gave Crimea to Russia, Russia would be satisfied. Clearly they aren't, and they're going to keep pushing forward.
Well, from the beginning, there have been people that have been concerned that if he won in Ukraine, that then he would start working on some of the other Eastern Bloc countries, the former Russian entities, or I should say former USSR entities. I don't know that, Poland or any of those countries think of themselves as ethnically Russian at any time, but they were part of the Soviet Union. But I don't sense that he's I think he's just going to try to take as much as he can as long as he's allowed to.
And it's exactly right. And we see that with dictators or those that have expansionist intent. What they want to do is just exactly like you said, take as much as possible. We had a children's book, I don't know if you ever read this, Kevin, called If You Give a Mouse a Cookie.
Yes.
And then they're going to want a glass of milk. And that's how expansionists, same, I love it. But it's a perfect analogy. If you give a little, they're going to take a lot. And that is why, while I will say, the balance of power has begun to shift a little bit here. Seeing what's happened in Venezuela, what's going on in Iran, all of these are interconnected. And the President Trump, is pretty aggressively going after some of these proxies of Russia right now. And I do think we're beginning to see a shift a little bit here, because even though Russia wants to gain all of this power, they currently don't have the capability. It doesn't mean we should underestimate them, but they are increasingly being diminished.
Well, yeah, and he's playing the long game because he just has millions of conscripts that he can put into the machine and turn them into hamburger meat, and he doesn't have to care about it. That is not, by the way, the same for Zelensky on the other side, much more limited resources, and yet being able to hold his own and at times take back places that Putin had pushed into. There's so much more I want to talk to you about this. And you just brought up a very interesting point in that with the operations in Iran and in Venezuela, and I have to kind of brag on the president here. These were not things that I think most of the world saw coming, and they were done before we woke up. The bombing of the Iranian nuclear stuff was all done by the time the U.S. woke up the next morning. Same with Venezuela. You wake up to the news that he's been taken. Does that send a message to Xi Jinping, to Vladimir Putin, to the mullahs, who seem to still be not getting the message in Iran, even North Korea? Do people take a look at that, or are dictators so far removed from reality that they don't really see what Trump did as being significant?
No, you only have to look at their screaming on the internet to realize they're terrified. What we just did was substantially project American power. I could not be more chuffed at the president for what he just did, obviously giving the opportunity for freedom to the Venezuelan people. But Maduro was a narco dictator. Not only that, he was truly impinging upon our safety and freedom here in the Western Hemisphere. And so it was imperative that we removed him from power. That, coupled then with seizing those ships that had been reflagged as Russian-born vessels, was clearly indicating that the president is willing to take these hard risks, and we saw them deliver. He's been highly successful at all of this, and so any of his detractors that talk about his unwillingness to use American power should take just a look at this last week to realize they are very wrong.
Yeah. No, and I think that sadly, the dictators are going to have to keep learning this lesson consistently because there's a lot of horrible stuff in the world. I've wrote a piece about this at Town Hall this week, but I'm just so amazed at how the administration has kept laser focus both on the multiple areas of foreign policy that are kind of tricky right now and domestic policy simultaneously. It's like every cabinet member, every department is on duty 24/7 and getting the job done. I want my money back from previous administrations that slept on the job. Meaghan Mobbs, always appreciate all your hard work, and have safe travels back home next week, and give our support and love to those who are being oppressed right now. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. Always great to be with you.
Kevin McCullough coming back from Times. Show, thatkevinshow.com, which is where you go if you want to help save a baby's life. Yes, babies need saving. They are under great duress in their pre-born state. It's still the most dangerous place for a young baby to be. Scott Wilder is back with me from PreBorn. And Scott, you were doing some research when we were off the air since the last time you were with us, and you actually had said this before. I kind of jogged in my head. I'm like, I wonder if that's true or not. But you're actually finding evidence and data that says that there are more dangers for the unborn child now than even before Roe v. Wade came down.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question about that. Because you have states like, I think this is one of the challenges we had on our side in explaining to people, what does that mean? If Roe versus Wade goes away, what does that mean? What does it really mean? And I think emotionally, Christians or conservatives who didn't really dive very deeply or dig very deeply into it thought that meant, oh, it goes away. Abortions become illegal. And of course, it just returned to the states. And that can be good if you have states that want to, do the quote, what we think is the right thing. Right. And it's very bad if you have states who go, oh, so any shackles that were on us before because of Roe versus Wade, those are now off. So we can go even further than Roe versus Wade was allowing us to do. And so you have states like that, the whole left coast, obviously, in Colorado, you have Illinois, you have Vermont, you have New York, New Jersey, even Minnesota, you have Ohio, who had that vote about a year and a half ago. Basically, the question was, do you want to become California and put it in your state constitution? They said yes.
I think Nebraska or Kansas did as well, which was a shocker.
So I think that's part of the thing is you have the demand that is higher than ever. I mentioned before in a segment that there is one of the preborn centers, there are 280 across the country. And one of the preborn centers is just north of where I live. And so we had gone up there because they had just been granted a big new piece of land. And they wanted to show their facility, remind us what it is, where the funds go when you provide an ultrasound. Here is a place like this where it goes. And one of the part, they even have an adoption consultation thing that is associated with it. They have a free, let's say a thrift store, because all the stuff is brand new. We can talk about that another time. They have a counseling thing. They have a men's thing. And then they have the medical facility with a doctor, registered nurse on staff. And that's where a girl can get her free ultrasound. And my point is, they are expanding. They're not expanding for fun. They're expanding because the demand is so high. One of the things I don't think I mentioned to you yesterday was, when we talk about women and what preborn does for women and mothers and babies, we love moms. We're pro-mom, pro-baby, also pro-dads. This particular center, this last year, 2025, counseled and ministered to 900 men, the fathers of those babies, married or not. And so the ministry aspect of this is huge. The demand is huge. And I think, not to chastise ourselves too much, but I think it could have been better. We could have better educated people along the way to when and if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, don't feel like you can take a victory lap.
What will the need be? No, you're exactly right. And we were talking about this in a different context, but it applies here. We can't, as pro-life Christians, will the country to be what we want it to be.
Sure.
We have to meet it where it is. And one of the themes of my show and what I'm talking about and writing about a lot this year is how we as believers elevate our culture, our language, our conversations, our relationships. How do we elevate for what is higher, for what is excellent, for what is good? And you can have the highest aims and want to go to the most, spectacular pinnacles of excellence in every part of your life. But if you don't start where you're actually at, you're deceiving yourself. And so I think one of the things that we do need to take a really hard look at, and sometimes it's painful because it means that there are people in our churches then that need the preborn center. There's people that are maybe in our family that need the preborn center. And there's those people that we would want to hope in a pretty plastic, perfect Barbie and Ken world would never need it.
Right.
But the truth is they do, because the truth is human life is messy and humanity is messy and sin messes everything up. And the most caring, compassionate, and righteous thing that we can do is help point them in the direction of truth so that they can make the best decision possible and love them in the process. At least that's my calculus of where we're at in 2026. Saving children has been a distinctively Christian thing throughout the history of the Christian church. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be even today.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, and thank you to the new 32 stations that added us to your lineup Monday through Friday just in the month of December. We are so excited to be the kind of newest member of the Salem Radio Network, and it's fun to be able to talk to you about all the things that we care about, one of which is family, and one of which is a very big focus for 2026 for the Heritage Foundation. And it's not often that I get to have Dr. Kevin Roberts rejoin us, because usually he's out being very busy with very important people, but he had some time today, so he said, I'll come hang out with the other Kevin on That Kevin Show. Hello, Kev. Good to see you.
Man, it's great to see you, and how could I say no to joining you and That Kevin Show?
It's always fun to have you. You're excited because there's some brand new research that you guys have been working on and got published in the Washington Post recently, all about family. And let me just say that going into the 2026 cycle, you guys are focused on family in kind of a more elevated way than you have maybe in the past, in terms of making it more the central focus of what you're talking about. But what's going on? Why the focus? Why the change? What does the new research say?
Well, you know, at Heritage, Kevin, we focus on the big questions, the civilizational questions. And the most pressing civilizational challenge we have in the United States on the cusp of our 250th birthday is the future of the family. You also know Heritage well enough, you know me well enough to know we don't engage in hyperbole or alarmism. And so we mean the following in terms of the bottom line of this paper up front. And it is that the American family for half a century has been in crisis. Federal policy has exacerbated that, along with, to be sure, cultural, social, and economic factors. And what we argue for in this paper, based on great social science data and some excellent policy proposals by my colleagues, is that there is a role for federal policy, for state policy, in addition to cultural and social factors, to reverse the decline in marriage and birth rates. If we don't do that, then America as we know it, in this first phase of America's golden age, is certainly going to change.
I remember, and I'm just pulling this off the top of my head right now, so maybe you have the statistics more specifically at hand, but I remember when George W. Bush was in the White House, there was an emphasis by his administration to do what they could with federal incentives to incentivize marriage in the culture, and saying we want to find a way to encourage people to get married as opposed to shacking up or living as single people and having kids out of wedlock and doing all the rest. They took a lot of grief for that, but that was one of those things where I always thought if government wants to be involved in the equation, that's the way to do it. We've done so much of the other with Planned Parenthood and family planning and, telling, families how many kids to have and all the rest. We've done a really terrible job in using government in the opposite direction, but very few times have we thoughtfully used policy to try to encourage actual health in families.
It's such an astute observation. In fact, to home in on that, we have proven from the 1960s especially all the way up to today, in spite of that great policy innovation attempt by the Bush administration, that government policy can undermine marriage rates and birth rates. There are so many disincentives in the American tax code, in our safety net welfare programs toward marriage. So the first step that we argue for in this paper, very much in the spirit of those Bush reforms of 20 years ago, is to eliminate all of those disincentives in the safety net reforms. But also in the spirit of that attempted reform from 2 decades ago, we argue that existing procedures or existing policies such as the child tax credit, the adoption tax credit, can be used to actually incentivize marriage and birth rates. And as my colleagues went around the world and analyzed similar programs in other countries like Singapore, Israel, and Hungary, while to be sure some of that data is mixed depending upon how much money was invested by those national governments, there are data to suggest that you can use federal and state policy to make this work. The additional bottom line, Kevin, as we argue in this paper, is that this is our first foray into family policy, as it's called. We will have additional studies. We will be running additional tests and modeling in order to refine the proposals we're making. But because we're almost at the point of no return, we believe that we have to get started now.
Well, and this is one of the things that even the late Charlie Kirk was very concerned about. He talked about the need for young people to marry, to start families, to buy a house from a financial perspective. When you adopt what many would consider to be that kind of antiquated traditionalist viewpoint that he advocated for, and by the way, I advocate for it. A lot of people that are in the center right of social media and media itself advocate for it because we've seen the benefit of what that's done in kind of smaller microcosms of society, churches, communities, etc. This is the path. But if we don't do that, Kevin, if we don't start bringing people back into a nuclear family, what happens to America? Does your research give us any indication of where we end up if we don't think along these lines?
It does. In fact, there are data out just in the last couple of days that underscore one of the conclusions we reached in the paper, which is this. As early as the year 2030, so just 4 years from now, there will be more deaths than births in the United States. And whether that's in 2030 or 2035, think about the implications just in terms of the federal budget there. We have fewer and fewer Americans paying for an ever-increasing safety net system, which includes Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. So unless you're willing to make drastic cuts to those programs in order to balance the people who are receiving those benefits with the people who are paying for those benefits, you have to look elsewhere in federal policy to see what you can do. And because it takes so long, very obviously, for any kind of incentive toward marriage and birth rates to actually take effect, we have to get started on this now. And so at Heritage, once again, we're not trying to be alarmist as much as we're saying we're going to face, not in 2050 or in 2075, but in the next several years, the question about how we replace the children who've not been born, how we replace the most important institution, the nuclear family, with other institutions. We're not willing to say at Heritage, we will never be willing to say that there's any more important institution than the nuclear family. It is time that federal policy reflect that truth, and it's time that state legislatures participate in this, hopefully with programs like block grants from the federal government for them to innovate on this question.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.